For all those joining us, we will be starting the webinar shortly, and thank you so much for joining. This is a sound check. If you can hear us, you should be all set. And if you are having difficulties with the sound, then absolutely dial in, but it looks like you are all good. Great, thank you, Sally.
It's great. We got a lot of people coming in. Keep coming in, everybody. We'll get started really shortly. So again, welcome.
Such a huge topic. Yes. Yes, we have the chat box, and I'll talk more about how our guests can use the chat box during the webinar in just a few minutes. But guests are not being heard right now, so don't worry about that if you have noise in the background. I know probably a lot of families have children running around, dogs barking, motorcycles in the distance, televisions going.
I think we can get started. I think a couple minutes in, we have a good crowd coming. So
Great. Well, I am excited to talk with you all tonight and introduce this webinar. Welcome, first and foremost. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. As attendees are mentioning, this is a hot topic right now, and we are happy to share all the information we have with you to provide a little bit more guidance. My name is Courtney Flint. I am the program advisor at Collegewise, and I am joined tonight by two fabulous presenters. The first is Anthony Russomanno. You all may know him, the College and Career Counseling Coordinator for the Capistrano Unified School District, and Breanne Boyle, who is a Master Counselor at Collegewise. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Collegewise, we are the largest college consulting firm in the country, and we started working with students back in 1999 when we had only one college counselor working with a handful of students. We have since grown and evolved to a team of over 60 Collegewise counselors, 40 different tutors, and we now help students all over the country and actually all over the world. Our goal is to help students navigate high school successfully by providing information and resources and expert counseling and mentorship. And we also help students through the college application process. So we love helping students identify colleges that are the best fit for them and also craft the very strongest of applications, which represent your strengths, your talents, and also your unique stories. So at the core of everything we do is information. And that is why we were really excited to have this opportunity to partner with the Capistrano Unified School District this evening to share with you the information that we have learned over the past few weeks of how the coronavirus is impacting college admissions. So before I turn it over to our presenters, I do want to talk a little bit about some housekeeping. We will be recording this webinar, so we will be sharing that with you afterwards, and you can watch it again at your leisure. Also, many of you are utilizing the chat box already, which is awesome. Keep doing that. And if you have questions, throw those questions in the chat box. If we have time at the end of the presentation, I will moderate those questions and give them over to Breanne and Anthony, who will be able to answer them for you. So hopefully we do have a little bit of time at the end. Also, we will be sharing some helpful resources and links with each of you. So keep your eyes on that chat box too, so you don't miss anything. And at this point, I would love to share the presentation with Anthony and Breanne and kick it off to both of you. I hope you have a wonderful webinar. And again, thank you so much for sharing your insights with our listeners this evening.
Great, thanks, Courtney, and welcome everybody. We're really excited to be here with you tonight. We know it's been extremely chaotic and stressful these last few weeks, trying to figure out online distance learning, try to figure out what's happening in the world, and then specifically for some of you that are joining us, what's happening in college and surrounding admissions, surrounding your situation. And so that's why we came together to talk about this tonight. So again, thanks for being here in this time. Hopefully you're staying engaged in your learning. I've come together with Collegewise, as Courtney pointed out, they are the largest college counseling organization in the country. So I've partnered with them. So my folks at Capo Unified, we partner with them to give some great information here tonight. So they're friends of mine, and I wanted to bring them in to this so we can talk about what's on hand and what's happening. For those of you who know Futureology, all of our programs will be offered virtually and online just like this, and Collegewise is doing the same. So be on the lookout for any other things coming up that might be beneficial to you. And if we have questions that we don't get to answer tonight, you can reach out to Breanne or myself. At the end, we'll have our emails going into the chat area as well, so you can reach out to us afterwards. Okay. So with that said, let's kind of go through. This is me. You can look at the slides and who I am. But again, I've been doing this for over 20 years, as Breanne has, in admissions and college counseling and helping students and families. So I want to continue to do that even tonight. And Breanne, again, she's a master counselor with Collegewise, and I think she's really excited because she's a big gamer too. So she gets to game a little bit while she's at home during this distance learning. But really what I wanted to do is really set the stage as we talk about things tonight. So let the questions come in. I know a lot of you are asking, like, I don't know if I should be here or should I not be here. Look, this is going to apply to 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders. We're going to look at an encompassing world of college admissions. Some of the things we talk about would be dealing with COVID-19, and some of it applies to whether we're in COVID-19 or not in this situation. So take what you can learn from this, and hopefully you can apply it to the best thing you can do. But what I wanted to focus on is talking about what you can control. We really can't control what's happening now except staying inside and being safe, okay? If you're starting to worry about things you can't control, you're going to feel more pressure. You're going to feel more stressed about this whole situation. So what I ask of you is to diminish your stress by just thinking about things that you can work on and control yourself in this process. And if you do that, you're going to be better off, okay? So we can't control the virus, and we can't control the impact at emissions and what's happening with that, even though I know it's a big thing, okay? So tonight we're going to do our best to focus on the things we can control in the wake of this, talk about some things tactically that we can do now to set yourself up for success, okay? And that's what we want to do when we kind of go in and talk about this. So we're going to weave this new narrative that we're happening, because this is a really crazy time in this crisis, okay? You're going to feel that there's sensory overload. You're going to feel a little bit scattered. Hopefully, talking about the 3 things we're going to talk about tonight: what's changed, what's not changing, and what we think might happen or might change in the future. And that's kind of tonight's agenda. Thank you for flipping that, Breanne. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about seniors, how they're impacted, younger students. We'll open it up at the end for a Q&A, and that's kind of what our plan is for tonight, okay? So again, we're going to do our best, and hopefully you'll be there with us along the way. And in that time, I'm going to turn it over to Breanne to take us through what is changing.
Gosh, feels like a lot, right? So it probably feels like a lot has changed. Most of the colleges you're hearing are, closing classes. They, as you've seen, your students in high school are coming home. They're working at home. A lot of the colleges have also moved to online. You're discovering that homeschooling is not, maybe as easy as you might have thought. So there's a lot of stuff happening right now. It feels like there's a lot of dramatic things going on. I think the uncertainty has also found its way into actual admissions offices, into the people who are working there. So, the people who work in enrollment management, people who are trying to figure out, the numbers, how many people are going to attend next fall. They want to hit a specific number of students. That's their yield. There's question marks around that now. Will students make different choices? Will they decide to not go far away? Will they stay closer to home? Will they decide not to attend college this fall at all? So there's some uncertainty around that as well. We're seeing wait lists get higher. So as some of these colleges were responding to admissions, um, in March, as this was starting to roll out with the virus, we were seeing that some colleges were going a little bit deeper with the wait list than typical, which meant that they were waitlisting more students than what we might have seen in the past. So some of that will happen because, again, they're trying to be mindful of the students and the numbers that will be coming. So for international students, some of that has changed a little bit as well. The US government has stopped taking visas for certain things. So that is going to impact the international students, which also impacts enrollment for colleges. So we might see some shifting in how they do their class creation in the next year. Some specific stuff with UCs, which we'll get into a little bit more later too, but some of the big things that have changed with the UCs is that we have seen that they are now going to take pass-fail grades. So what that means is if your high school is shifting from A through F grades to pass-fail, the UCs decided last week, as well as the Cal States, that they will accept those as completed courses. In the past, that wasn't true. They would only take letter grades. So that's a good thing. It means if a school that you are attending or that a family member is attending, if you know they're shifting to pass-fail, the UCs and the Cal States will still take those grades. That it'll impact the GPA a little bit and how they figure that out. So they'll be figuring out GPA minus those classes that go pass fail. The UCs and Cal States have also shifted to being test optional for this upcoming year. So it means that they will take a student's transcript and information and application without an SAT or an ACT, should you choose to do that for whatever reason. They will take that application for the class of 2021. They have not indicated that that will go beyond the applicants for this upcoming year, but that's something that should relieve some students if they're unable to get some of the testing dates, since so many have canceled up to this point. So that's some of the stuff that has changed. One of the other big things is that the government is waiving federal student loan interest. So it's a silver lining, right? The federal government announced last week that they're going to waive federal student loan interest rates during the crisis. So if you have older students who are in college, that this is a good thing. So a borrower with a federal loan will have the interest waived during this temporary time. So there's some good stuff. And it could mean that having UCs and other schools going test optional this fall, which we've seen other schools, not just the UCs, it could mean that some students might have some opportunities to apply to some colleges they might not have had in the past, which I think is a good thing. So,
Breanne, we had some questions come in. So somebody asked how will, and some of these are coming to the presenter. So how will the pass fail affect the student's GPA? Guys, listen, if it's pass fail, it's not affecting your GPA. Okay,
right.
so it's not doing anything for it. So that's what it is. And Cal States, yes, are going test optional too. I just put some links into the chat area for the UCs about their declarations they made. And now I'm going to do the same things for the Cal States. So you have those links in there. So take a look. You can click on them. It's going to give you all the information about GPA through G requirements. It's all the things Breanne has been talking about. I'm sending the links, and we'll do this throughout the night. The links to what we're talking about, you can stay updated on that. Okay. And then another one, Hannah asks, can you ask your school not to do pass fail if they choose to do it that way? You can ask them and you can tell them what you would like, but the schools are typically going to do and make that for all students. So if students got to choose and everybody was so different, it'd be hard to manage. So it's typically a district-wide or a school-wide decision what they're going to do. Capistrano Unified hasn't come out with a statement about what they're doing just yet. In the next few weeks, you're going to see what happens with it. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about context a little bit later. So those were some of the questions that were coming in, Breanne, that had to do with kind of what you were talking about. Some of the other questions are dealing with testing, which we'll talk about later. Okay.
Sounds good. So it's just what hasn't changed.
Oh, okay, there's a few more. They keep coming, which is great. Please clarify the graduating class of 2021. So school starting fall next year will be test optional. So for class of 2000, so you juniors right now who would be applying next fall for the fall after, okay, to start fall 2021, okay, you are in that situation where they're letting that test optional for some schools go. Who knows if they bring it back later or not, but they're saying for those juniors now, it is test optional, okay? All right, I'm gonna save some of these questions and so we can move
Yeah,
on,
those
okay?
are good questions, though.
I'm gonna go, okay, so I'm gonna get into what hasn't changed. So Breanne, if you can go see some of the questions we didn't answer that might be saved for later, we can kind of touch on it. The other link I'm gonna throw on here, guys, before I get started on what hasn't changed, and great questions, keep them in, are the test optional schools. Okay, these are just in general. There are a lot of colleges, you know, nearly 1,000 that are test optional. I just put that link on there for those schools. And again, there's probably over 300 now coming out. I mean, I think Northeastern yesterday came in saying we'll do test optional for those classes. Every day something is changing. So again, tomorrow something else might come out, but we'll just give you the information of what we know at this time. Okay. All right. So what hasn't changed? Okay, and that's what I'm going to get into now. Keep the questions coming in. We'll do our best to get to them all. I know you guys have a lot of questions. All right, so now when these type of chaotic situations have happened before in the past, okay, and what colleges and schools and educators are trying to do is create some stability in this time, okay? And I'm going to talk to you about what will always be true, regardless. So this situation might feel chaotic, but you need to understand the big picture. When we talk big picture, colleges are still going to admit kids. They're still going to find reasons to admit kids, not necessarily deny them. And I know we're always feeling like, I know this school's going to deny me, but they typically are looking for kids to admit, not kids to deny. So maybe you don't get in because they admitted someone else. It wasn't that you weren't worthy, possibly. Okay. We know that high schools are going to finish the year. You know, for a lot of you in my district, we're going to finish the year at home, but we're going to finish the year. When you roll around in the summer and the fall, applications will still be due for colleges. These things are not going to change. There's still going to be ways to find what you're interested in. There's still going to be opportunities to access activities, but in different ways, maybe more creative ways. Those things will still hold true. Okay. And people are asking, well, what if I can't take a standardized test or if I can't get a grade and all those things? These things are really big questions, but some of it we just don't know the answers yet. They're coming out every day, like I said. But what we do know and what's still not changing is colleges and admissions officers are going to read you in the context of your situation and environment. Now, everybody's in this same environment that we're in right now, okay? We're all going through this. We're all online at home, okay? But knowing that if your school goes pass or fail, or if your school doesn't offer something, just like if we were without the virus, if your school didn't offer it, the schools aren't going to hold that against you. So they're not holding these things against you. And Katie just asked the question, are they taking things into consideration? Yes, they're taking everything into consideration. They're looking at the context. Maybe you didn't have the support at home that some of your other students might have had. Okay, it's exactly harder for kids. It might be harder for a lot of kids who don't have the support at home. And maybe you're one of those students. Okay, so again, you're going to be read in the context of your environment. So in your application, there are opportunities to talk about maybe if you had a weak semester, if your school is doing grades. If you're doing pass fail, maybe there's opportunities or there might not be as many opportunities for you. So again, whatever the district or school you're in and what they do, they're going to take that into account with your application. So they want to know and they want to understand your situation. You just have to present that in a way. Now, granted, for kids in my district, when applications roll around, we help students with their applications in the fall, all the seniors. So we can talk about those things, okay? So the other thing is I want you to understand that colleges recognize the humanity of all of this. They're going to adjust and make it better for students. They are. They're already coming out. Schools are saying, we don't need a test score because maybe you can't get to take the test. Okay, so sometimes they do it because it's the right thing. Sometimes they do it because they have peer pressure from other colleges. Regardless, they're still making those adjustments. So again, the UCs are coming out, the Cal States are coming out. If you have pass and fail in your school, we'll accept that. We'll accept that for A through G requirements. So they're doing what they can to adapt and making it work for you. So I wouldn't stress about that, okay? Again, other schools, Case Western, University of Oregon, they're all coming out test optional, which is fantastic. The other thing that's not going to change is what we call, if you haven't heard of this, demonstrated interest. Some schools really like this notion of showing that you like them and you like, and the schools like you, okay? So if you're not able to visit, how will that impact you? Well, now the difference is it's just going to be more nuanced. That's not going to change. You can still show interest in somebody. Just the same, if you want to show interest in your friend, you can text them. You can reach out to them. You can call them. You don't have to necessarily go over to the house to show interest. So again, demonstrated interest is something that's not going to change. But again, a little bit more nuanced. So if you're looking to engage with a college or university now, you have to do it online. You have to do it through email. You can take a virtual tour now. You don't have to go over to the campus. You can get on their mailing lists. So there's so many different things you can do to show interest still, even though you can't go and visit them or meet them face to face. I mean, the other two things you can do is you can, in your application, write a really well thought out essay about why you want to go to that school or even apply your early decision with that particular college. So that's a second thing that isn't changing. The third thing that's not changing, and I think this one is the huge thing of it all, is that we have to remember that character, courage, creativity, collaboration, these things always will matter no matter what. And I know a lot of people are going, well, how do I get to be creative if I can't be in school? There's so many ways to be creative. We've already seen it. I'm seeing kids build their universities and their high schools in Minecraft. My kids like Minecraft, they're younger. So yes, things look different now, but there's still ways that you can make an impact. There's still ways you can work together with people. If you go online, you can start seeing all the things that people are doing now still to access people. I know people are within their own clubs. Actually, my son plays soccer locally here in San Clemente, and their club, their team is getting together on Zoom. If you've ever used Zoom, it's a kind of different platform like that to meet with meet with their players and teams, and go over. They're doing training on Instagram Live, so they're staying connected. Okay, so you need to find or generate more of those opportunities right now for you if you're trying to find out what you can do. Okay, so we encourage you to look to other ways you can help, ways you can serve, that you can show your values to the colleges. Okay, so I'm asking you now to think about, I don't need you to answer me, but what are ways you can positively contribute to your community, to your clubs, to your family, to your friends now that is going to show off your creativity, that's going to show off your courage, show off your character, your cooperation, because that's always going to matter. So that's not changing, folks. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And whether we were in the virus or not, that thing will still hold true. Okay, so that's what's changing. And I'm going to turn it back over to Breanne for what might change. And we're getting tons of questions, so I'm going to dive in and start trying to see if we can collect them. So thanks.
Yes, we are trying to collect them as much as possible. I'm also trying to furiously answer them sometimes when my co-presenter is presenting. But as I put in the chat, If you don't get your question answered, if we can't hit it because we have so much to cover tonight, our emails were in the beginning. They'll be at the end. We can give them to you again. Please feel free to email Anthony or me, and we'll get you answers. So we just might not be able to hit everything tonight. We'll do our best. So what might change? We don't know, right? We could speculate every day. I joke that everything changes every 39 minutes in college admissions right now. So we don't know, but there are some ideas and some thoughts. Selective schools with large endowments, not much is going to change for them. They're protected a little bit financially, so things like that are going to stay the same. Smaller schools that might have smaller endowments for financial aid and covering costs, the way they give financial aid and the way they give scholarships could shift this year. That is something we'll just have to watch and see. We'll see how colleges maybe change this coming fall. Some colleges, now that they've moved online, they might offer more online courses coming up this fall, and students might opt to do that. If we're still in the same place that we are this fall, where students are having to be online, colleges will adjust. Colleges will move things online just like they did this semester. So, they're going to adjust as things happen, and they've adjusted pretty swiftly so far. So I think that what might change, we can use a little bit of what's happened in the past to predict that. And some of that will happen with your high schools. We don't, like we said, we don't know what will change with pass and fail grades depending on your district. So we'll see. But every college has come out very swiftly and said, no matter what happens with your high school, if grades change, if you're unable to take tests, we understand. And I just want to echo what Anthony said, because it was so poignant and true, that this process, though it seems like some grizzled old man who doesn't care about your child, is sitting in an office with elbow patches on his jacket and just trying to find ways to not admit your student. It's wildly different in real life. These are people who very deeply care about the students that they're reading in their applications, and they understand what's going on. They are just as stressed as you. They are just as worried as you. They might even have kids in the same situation as you do. So there is a lot of humanity around this, and there will be a lot of flexibility and understanding if things happen at the high school or the testing level. So just know that. So some things that also might change. There's been some predictions at what's going to happen with college choices. Students might choose something different. I touched on that earlier. We might see an increase in online college enrollment because we've proven that college, students can take online classes at college. We might see an increase in community college enrollment. As we know, people have been affected by this financially. Sometimes, some people are losing jobs or maybe not getting as many hours as they had in the past. So with that financial shift for families, we may see more families deciding to do community college for the first year or two and transfer later once that financial stuff has stabilized. We might see them, attending, taking more gap years, which means to push off their admission a year, even though they've been accepted, and do something else like work or take some classes. So we might see some of that stuff happening. I think in California, we may see a trend in more people staying in state. That might happen as well, kind of based on the same thing, maybe some fear, maybe some financial situations. I think we're just going to see people opening up to other ideas. So those are some of the predictions and ideas that could change. And we'll see as it goes. Like I said, everything changes day to day, and stuff might be different in a couple months. And Anthony and I will come back on here and update you again. So let's see, were there questions related to that? I think we're still talking about test scores. I think we touched a nerve on that. Man, we'll have to come back.
Yeah, as always, I mean, SATs and ACTs is probably the most anxiety-provoking piece of everything, whether there's a virus or no virus. People get freaked out by SATs and ACTs. We will talk about testing in a little bit, so hold off on that. I saw a bunch of questions coming in. Couple things. Capo hasn't decided what they're doing with grading. That still needs to be determined over the next week or two. So be on the lookout, but you'll be notified whatever they decide, okay? No, I don't make that decision, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately. I don't know if I would want to make that decision, because I know there's people, when you make a decision like that, some people are like, that's awesome, pass, fail, I love it. And then other people are like, but I want my grade to go up and stuff. But what I can tell you is they're going to make the decision with humanity in mind and with your best interest as a whole, as a district in mind. And they're not going to make a decision that's going to ultimately end up hurting you in the admissions process. That's not the point of them trying to do that. They're not going to go like, let's just do something because it's easier. Let's just, no, what's the best interest of our kids based on all the information that we have? We can't make a decision right now because the UCs still need to come out with a few more guidelines on how that's going to work. They haven't fully come out with saying, if you do this, we won't hold it against you. So we're waiting for that to decide as a district, but really good question. So when that comes out and we're able to read that and know what the consequences are of which grading policies, then CAPA will make a decision. But we don't have that information from the UCs, which we're told it should be by the end of this week, early next week. Then the decision will be made. So really good question. So again, we're getting tons of questions coming on. Let me see if I can answer some that aren't. Breanne, I can't keep up with it. They're coming in so fast. So we love that questions are coming in. Guys, if you want to ask an SAT and ACT question, hold off, don't ask it so we can catch up on the other questions. We're going to talk about testing in a little bit, okay? So we had a couple questions, let me see, that weren't test related, so I might try to hit them now so we can knock them off. And it was about admissions. How will the CUS or UC selects which students get in? Like they've always done. They're going to look at your applications. They never have enough seats for anybody. It's going to be competitive at the high-end UCs and the high-end Cal States. What I will tell you, as doesn't change, the most important thing in this process is making a good college list. So picking UCLA or UC Berkeley when you're not even in the range doesn't make sense. So the colleges get so many applications that they're still going to do their comprehensive reviews of people looking at the applications and stuff. So again, the pass fail isn't really going to affect them that much. They're still going to have the same criteria they always have. If this is just a blip on the screen where it's only 3 months of distance learning, it's not going to really affect them in their decisions. They're going to go about it the same way and take context into account. So anyway, so that wasn't a testing question in that sense. So somebody asked, what do you suggest if the school you're interested in is not TEPS optional and you're hoping for early decision but haven't been able to test? So that's another test question, so I'm going to put that away. Oh, this one's good, Breanne. I'm going to throw it to you. Distance learning is taking about 8 hours a day, so any extracurriculars are a bit of a challenge. Is this common right now?
That's a great question. So I think it just depends. I've heard both things, right? That either you can't do much because you're stuck in your house, or you can't do much. And I think, again, colleges will understand. But what I have been challenging my students to do is to be creative, because you can probably do more than you think from home and outside of the schoolwork. So I think we have to be understanding of people's mental spaces. I don't think you should, if you're doing classwork for 8 hours a day and you're stressed, add more to your plate to make it more stressful. However, if you can be creative and set up a study group once a week on Zoom with your fellow classmates and do that weekly and lead that, I think that can count as an activity. I think there are things you can do and be creative. And actually, I think we talk a little bit later about some creative ideas for that. But again, colleges will be flexible and understand that there's a little bit of a wall here. You're not going to be able to do the same kind of level of activities that you were able to do before because of the limitations you have.
All right, I'm going to answer this question now, and after a few more questions, maybe we'll get back to the rhythm of what we were planning on talking about and probably evoke more questions. So this question came in and people are wondering and people are confused, and I get it, but you're going, so colleges are looking at character now? What about grades and test scores and stuff? Look, guys, a lot of juniors have had their tests, so they can submit those. Just because one semester you have a pass or fail doesn't mean you didn't take a course. It will still show AP Physics. It will still show the classes you've taken for years. Those things aren't going away. They'll still be able to look at your profile and say, look, this kid took a regular course load. Most schools went pass fail, so they're not necessarily looking at grade for the spring semester, but they know what class you've taken. They know what grades you had in 9th and 10th grade. That's not going to change. So the thing is, they're still going to be looking at the classes you take. They're still going to look at maybe AP tests. They'll look at test scores if you have them. And if they don't, they'll look at other things. They'll look at your activities you've done for 2 or 3 years already. So those things aren't going to disappear because we went to online learning for 3 months or whatever it may be. That stuff will still be there. So they're still going to be able to look at that stuff. That doesn't disappear. So whatever you've done up to this point is still there. They will still look at it. Then they will take for the next 3 months here the context of what your situation is, whether your school, maybe your school stopped offering this, maybe your school only went to pass fail. They're going to look at that. But you still will have activities. You will still have rigorous courses or not rigorous courses. You'll still have AP tests, not AP. I don't know in your profile. So that's not going to change. What they will have is you might not have a test score. Okay. So they'll still look at the other things. So maybe you don't have a test score. So what kind of classes did you take? You said you were interested in engineering. Did you take an engineering classes? That isn't going to change, virus or no virus. So guys, I know it seems confusing. For Breanne and I, sometimes it's really simple, and so we're sorry if we're making it sound like it's not confusing, because it can be. But I'm telling you, what will always remain, they're going to look at the whole profile for schools that look at the whole profile. Now, we know at Cal States, they don't take recommendations and things, so they can't look at that. But for schools that look at recommendations, they'll look at recommendations like they always have. That's not going to change. So again, remember, control what you can. If you can't control taking an SAT or ACT, can you control what activities you do online? Sure, you can. Can you control when you come back to school, what classes you take? Sure, you can. Can you control next year when you're back in school, what activities you're involved in and you stay involved in? Sure, you can. So control what you can control, and you're going to be fine. When you become a senior and you're coming up with your college list, we're going to find colleges that match you, which is going to ultimately help you get into the colleges that you want to go to. Okay. And that's what it comes down to eventually. So again, right now it might feel stressful, but we don't even know what schools you're applying to yet. We don't even know fully your grades, your classes. That's a process that we need to get into. Don't jump ahead and go, oh, I'll never get in. We don't even know. We don't even know what it's going to look like for your candidacy just yet. So I'm sorry you're feeling stressed, but again, things will work out. Colleges, whoever you apply to, will look to accept you. I'm telling you, they're going to look to accept you. Okay, so let's keep looking at some of the questions. I'm going to move on. I just put another link in the chat about updates from the NCAA for any of my student athletes here as well. Okay, so you can take a look at that. And we're going to add, I'm going to show you another link just because I mentioned it about Minecraft because my kids love it. So this is for my kids. They really liked that the kids were building it. So this is just a link of what some of the kids are doing, building schools during the closure. I thought it was really cool. So, okay. So Breanne talked about some things that might change. You know, some of the things that I see potentially can happen down the road, and I get this a lot, is like, well, maybe I'm not going to go to school far away. I might need to save money. My financial situation has changed. That's going to change a lot. That's something that you probably want to talk about and counsel with as you kind of make those decisions. So if I have seniors kind of going through that now, my counselors and I are available to you to help you make some of those decisions if you're really confused or you don't know what to do. Okay. So, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, for my seniors especially. You know, it's a really tough time for you. I know I talked to my son and just saying what he's going through. I don't know if I've ever had to deal with, but I know for my seniors that, you know, this was exciting. I'm graduating. It's my spring of my senior year. And oh, now all of a sudden I'm confused. I'm frustrated. I can't go out and see my friends. It wasn't my fault. I didn't deserve it. Look, you guys didn't deserve this. It's definitely not fair for my seniors on the call, even for my juniors, where you had some plans and you go, I want to celebrate and end my junior year strong. Or even my younger students who are just getting and learning the roads and finding their high schools. It really is unfortunate right now. I'm sure all of us had other plans. Nothing can change that now, though, and we really want to send out our sincerest apologies that these things are happening. But like I said, right now, you know, the people around you, Collegewise, Futureology, your school, your friends, we're all allies in everyone's corner. We're helping everybody get through this. What you have to figure out, again, things that you can control now and you can do. It's an opportunity for you and your classmates to, first of all, nobody's seen anything like this. You're going to have something to talk about later on. Remember the time when we were here and we're doing this and how resilient you came out of this? Okay, so again, navigating this is going to be really intriguing. But again, remember how creative you can be, how innovative you can be, and take that to the bank and figure out how you're going to get through this crazy time and be the best version of yourself. And that ultimately will carry you on into college and beyond. For my juniors, and Breanne will talk a little bit about them and your situation, but we're going to be looking for finding other creative ways to stand out. I know somebody had a question about that, and we'll talk about that. So right now, look at things you can focus on, such as finishing out your schoolwork, finishing out your priorities, whether you have AP exams coming up. Okay, I'm going to put another link on here, which is like what's happening at some of the schools, some of the visits they're doing. And for my seniors too, avoiding summer melt, which is where you kind of lose all the motivation and you don't follow through with college. Okay, really make sure that you stay motivated and you continue your work. You get up, you get dressed, you maintain some set of normalcy and a schedule. Self-care is really important too. Okay, even though you can't physically visit the colleges now and you're still making decisions, we're also going to put some links up here about how you can virtually visit some schools and do some tours online if you need to still make some decisions. Okay, so I'm going to put those links up now, but again, I know the situation we're in. I just want to help you guys stay positive. Reach out to Futureology if you need to, if you need some questions, additional questions or some counseling about that stuff. So here's a link that's going to be about information like deposit extensions for colleges, closures, what schools are doing. Okay, this is going to be a link that I'm posting right now. There's the link right there. And that'll give you some details on what's happening on a lot of the different campuses about some of their deadlines. The good news is a lot of schools have moved their deadlines to make decisions to later, which kudos to them. Okay, but anyway, so I'm going to turn it back to Breanne. I don't know if there's any questions that came up, Breanne, that you think you want to, start plugging away answering right now before you get into some of these other deadlines and different things like that.
Well, there are certainly some questions that are probably specific to Capo. I don't think we can answer them here. People asking about, Zoom proms and Zoom graduations and things. So just know that that's probably not something that Anthony knows at this point.
I could tell you that they're all talking about that. So as we talk, the thing is, once they've made a decision, they're going to let you know. I know they're really important graduation ceremonies. If your clubs have ceremonies and different honors and stuff like that, the decisions are being worked on now because the landscape is changing so quickly. They want to get ahead of it, make the right decision, don't want to make a hasty decision. So they don't have that yet. They will have that soon. And when they do, and when they make that decision, you'll hear about it from your school. Okay. I don't have that information yet. Okay. I know when probably you guys know because they send it out to all of us. Okay. Okay.
So let's just talk about a couple things here, timing and wait lists and all of that. What's going on? Like Anthony mentioned, their deadlines could change with colleges. So for those of you who have seniors, the enrollment deadline to choose a college is typically May 1st across the board. A lot of colleges have suggested that they move that to June 1st, or have offered to move it to June 1st. Some colleges have even said that they will move to July 1st to give students more time to make a decision, to understand the finances, to give updated information to colleges about finances. So if you have a senior who is still considering which colleges to go to, especially if finances have changed, I would contact the financial aid office at that college and ask to send updated information for them to reconsider your financial package. And a lot of those, and some schools are giving a later deadline. But the main thing is you need to watch what your college is deciding. So don't just assume they're moving to June or July. Look at the portals and see what they're saying. Again, we talked about wait lists, but just to reiterate that here, we'll see, we've seen some schools use wait lists a little heavier this year. I think we'll see colleges go deeper into wait lists as well this year, because, and we've already seen actually a couple of colleges do that, pull a lot of people off of wait lists because, again, that college list is shifting or their class list is shifting. So they might need to pull from the wait list. That will totally vary by college, though. A question that comes up with the UCs: will the UC extend the deadline for accepting admissions offers, like I mentioned before with other schools? So far, no. They have said that their registration deadline for enrollment is still May 1st for freshmen and June 1st for transfers. As of now, they have not extended that. If you need additional time or a deferment for a deposit, you need to contact the UC campus directly. And they also have a deadline of July 1st for transcripts to be sent to them. As of now, they're asking people to still send them by that date. But if there's a reason why you can't, or if the school is unable to send them, they have asked that you contact them directly to let them know that the transcript might come in later than July 1st. And these are for seniors who are accepting their admission spot at a UC. But as of right now, the UCs have not moved their dates out, while other schools have shifted those. So again, just to reiterate, look at your college portals, find out what your specific college is doing, and follow what they say specifically. Read the emails. If there are students on here, please read your emails. That's how colleges are sending you information. So, trying to see, I didn't generate a ton of questions, so that's good. Maybe we can bounce on into the next stuff and keep going.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the testing part now. And again, we got a lot of questions on this. So, and again, for some of you, and I'm getting some texts and stuff like, hey, I just want to get to the Q&A. Like, look, I hear you and you have tons of questions. Not everybody knows all this information, so we have to do our due diligence, cover it, and make sure you've heard it, which will also save us answering some questions, because some of the questions you've asked, we're going to hit. So again, I apologize. If you just have questions and you don't want to listen to some of this, my banter anyway, you could always email us and just ask your questions there. Okay. So again, for some of you, you might want to get to the questions already. Anyway. So about as far as the testing goes and talking about that, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, if you've already scheduled tests, they've canceled the spring tests. You have some June tests happening. We're going to give you the links to the changes pages so you guys can stay up to that, because again, every day something different might happen. The June test dates are for ACT and SAT. Do I know if they're going to happen or not? I don't know yet. They haven't made any decisions on it. My guess, the way things are rolling, is they'll probably ultimately be changed. So understand that you might have to pick a new test date. So some of you, I know some of you have already scheduled and moved to June. Some of you might have to move from June to August. That might happen. So understand, with that said, colleges understand that. They know some kids are not getting their test dates. And that's why a lot of them went test optional. So we talk about test UCs, and the Cal State's made adjustments. We talked about that. So you don't have to submit a test score with that. What I would say, and here's just some advice coming from me about testing, is even if you don't have to, because it's test optional, if a test opens and they're going to host a test, I'm still okay with you going and registering early for future test dates. One, before the seats fill up. And two, it's okay to put a score down and you don't have to submit it. A lot of tests are used for scholarships as well. So by having a test score, it might help you with some scholarships. And again, we don't know fully the effect of not having a test score, and are they going to offer those scholarships? That might change as well. But for now, knowing what we know, if you can get a test under your belt, it wouldn't hurt you. Okay, it can only help you. So if August is the next test date for SAT and you could schedule it and could take it, that's not a bad thing. Now, if you're totally despising exams and doing that, well, then, maybe you have a different set of schools you might apply to. So again, these tests are potentially happening in June, but we don't know that for sure. Breanne just posted the links for that, for testing, for SAT updates and ACT updates. So check those regularly. For those that actually signed up for an exam, like you signed up for the June SAT or you signed up for the March SAT, they give you the refund. You're going to get a refund and you'll have to reschedule. That's all you're going to have to do. So don't leave it up to them to scheduling your next exam. You have to pick it, schedule it. And I'm telling you, because so many people are missing their testing dates, it's going to fill up really fast. So you want to, once it goes up, if you want to test, you should schedule. Okay. I'm going to move on to some AP exam stuff. Somebody asked about that, so I'll really quickly talk about that. The AP exams, I'm sure most of you have heard already, especially those who are set to take them. They moved it to an online exam. The exam schedule is out. The dates are from May 11th to May 22nd, so you can go on to College Board and see what the schedule is. I'm sure your teachers are working with you and they're streamlining the exam, and they've designed it with security in mind, so understand it will be very secure. They're going to have tools to detect plagiarism, so even though it's open note, open book, they'll be able to determine that you've plagiarized or not. I've even heard that they're going to be sending your answers to your teachers as well. So there'll be severe consequences, so please don't do it. Okay. The scoring scale will remain the same. So knowing that, again, knowing what we know about colleges, if you have the opportunity to still take your AP exam and you were registered for it, I'm a big believer that you should go forward with that and still do that. Dropping the exams will show that you've dropped some of your rigor. And if you're applying to a competitive school, it's not going to look good. Okay. So that's AP exams. IB exams, they've canceled totally. Somebody, I know, Breanne, somebody I think said something about subject tests. I didn't catch that question.
Yes,
Uh,
and I'm trying my best to answer people individually too. So
okay.
subject tests, there was a question about will those change? As of right now, subject tests are still as they will be, and the SAT and ACT have not announced that they're moving anything online yet. So
Mm-hmm.
their plan is to still do a normal administration in person in a proctored room. They just are canceling dates to hopefully have
Mm-hmm.
options in summer and fall when you can sit in a proctored room and do that. So SAT subject tests would still be administered in the
Right.
same way. The APs are the ones that are changing as far as the actual format.
Sure. Yeah, so the format hasn't come out yet, but there are some schools like MIT that's saying we're not considering subject tests right now because of the situation. So some schools are making adjustments as well. So again, for whatever schools you're considering, you should think about it. But for now, you can't take a subject test online, just like the APs. Who knows what's going to happen by next fall? And it's really going to depend. But the good news for a lot of people, those who don't know what subject tests are, those are subject specific exams in physics or history, chemistry that take for some of the top competitive schools. And there's not a huge number of schools that require them, but for certain majors, they also require them. Whether you want to be an engineer at UC Berkeley, then they'll require them. So depending on your major, it might be required. But again, what will remain the same is colleges are going to look to help you out. If you couldn't take the exam because of this situation, they're going to start coming out with, oh, that's okay. So understand right now, they're making and they're adjusting and they're adapting to the situation. So understand that. We don't have the full word on everything. We don't know what's going to happen with the subject test down the road. Is if this continues on for a longer period of time, my guess is he's going to say we don't need the subject test. That's just going to happen that way. But we don't know what's going to happen. Okay. Somebody asked if you're signed up for a June test, does it make sense to push that out to fall? You're a junior student. Well, I don't know. It really depends on your situation. For example, are you have other things going on like AP exams, so you don't want to study for the June test? Or should you already push it out? Well, they don't have the fall dates. You can't register anyway. I would keep that June test date for now and see. Again, the other thing I don't know, which again, everybody, you're asking some questions and I don't always have enough detail. I don't know what your score is right now. Are you taking practice tests? Maybe you're scoring really well. So then yes, take the June test. Maybe you haven't prepped a bit and you don't plan on it. Well, then why would you take the June test? If you've mock tested through our Futureology program, maybe you have a score that's okay, but not great. So maybe we would postpone it so you get some prep under your belt. So really good questions. Okay, great questions, but there's more to be known to really give you a definitive answer or at least better advice to your specificity. So guys, some of the questions we can't answer because we don't know enough background about you and what you should do. So a lot of times it's generalities. So keep the June test. I would keep the June test, but if I knew more, then I might suggest that you don't keep the June test based on what you tell me. So again, that requires just more additional information. So if you have more and you want to email myself or Breanne, we can maybe give you a little bit more. But right now, I wouldn't get rid of it because we don't know what's happening yet. And it might be a very coveted spot if it opens up again. You might be able to sell that for a lot of. I'm just kidding. So other questions. All right. Let's see. Testing wise. Let me put some links in there about the AP exams. Breanne, did you put the SAT and ACT ones and the other links for APs and stuff like that?
Yes, I
Okay,
went ahead and
awesome.
just pasted them all in that same
Oh,
bulk
perfect.
thing,
Awesome.
and we
It's
should
going
be
so
able
fast,
to.
I can't even
I
float
know,
through it. I'm just like, I'm
uh,
scrolling so fast.
and I think we'll still
Um,
be following up with everybody to give them, links
mhm,
and stuff after, so you guys can
right.
get the links that we have.
And guys, if we didn't answer your questions, you can definitely email us. Again, you need to understand, we're getting, if you don't realize it, we're getting 50, 60, 70, 80 questions being thrown at us. So it's hard to manage that while we're trying to give you some information. And you're trying to, and I get it, you're trying to ask about your particular situation. And sometimes we just don't know enough information to give you that answer, unfortunately. If it's a general questions and like this one that just came in, will colleges look differently at a student who doesn't send in test scores or one that does? Again, folks, we talked about it earlier. It's going to be context. If you didn't send your test score in and you're applying to a very competitive college, what else do you have? What else do you have in your candidacy? They're going to take everything into context. What do your classes look like? What does your rigor look like? What do your activities look like? So again, will it look differently? They're going to look at everything in context. What did you have to say about why you didn't do something or why you did something? So again, when it comes down to that, again, they're telling you, and I'm telling you, the humanity of this all is they're not going to hold it against you. They're looking at ways to admit you. So if you get denied, they're saying, and you didn't turn in a test score, that whatever else you presented to them wasn't for them to admit you. That's what it is. If you get accepted, they're thinking your candidacy as a whole in your context look good enough for them to admit you. A lot of times, people don't get admitted to schools not because they weren't a good candidate. It's because there's just not enough spots. Then a lot of people don't get into a school because they chose the wrong school or they wrote the wrong thing or they weren't a good candidate to begin with. So that's going to matter a lot. So if you don't send a test score in and you're applying to a really competitive school and you don't have a lot in your background of other things, you're probably not going to get in regardless of the test score. Okay, so again, context. All right,
We jump
Marie.
into younger kids.
Yeah, let's talk about younger kids and we'll, again, we're going to have to just at the end of this, guys, in the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to try to hit all these questions. And what I'll ask right now, if you guys can stop submitting the questions for now, let Breanne finish, then we can start on the questions. And when we get to some of those that came in first, we'll answer more questions. Okay. So if I can ask you, because a lot of you, again, you guys are asking so specific questions. If you especially can refrain from those, because we can't answer those right now. Should I be this major? That's just too hard for me to say yes or no to. Um, so again, Breanne, I'll let you go on and we'll try to kind of get to.
I'm just going to say yes to everyone. Yeah, do that major. No, I'm just kidding. um, and the reason that we're saying we can't answer some of those things is because some of the questions you guys are sending in are so specific to your situation that without more context, it's really hard for us to advise without feeling like we might be misadvising. So I am trying to respond individually to people as much as possible in your specific situation, but sometimes I say it depends, and that's why. um, so, let's take the shift off of seniors a little bit, because I know there's plenty of you in here with juniors. I see a lot of you in here with juniors. So let's talk about some of the younger kids. So class of 2021, what should you be doing right now? Besides all the testing stuff, we talked about that. So aside from that, make the most of this time. I'm having the students that I work with, still look at, registering for those tests like we talked about in the summer, but being creative with their activities, doing fun stuff. I have a student who loves doing art, and she started making cards for healthcare workers to send to them. I have another student who had a 3D printer in her house, random, but she had one, and she got a little a format to be able to make the plastic things that hold the masks on so that they make them more adjustable for the healthcare workers. So she's printing a bunch of those on her 3D printer. You can do some really creative stuff. You can just, start an Instagram account and share, your favorite bands and your favorite music, or start that AP study group and lead that every Friday. Whatever the thing is, be creative with the stuff you can do with your time, since we know that activities have been canceled and, summer activities may shift. And that really goes for any of the students here. 2021, if you're, sophomores, if you're freshmen, it's all of those things. For those juniors, though, as you end the school year here, the things you can also work on are college applications. The Common Application is already open. You could go in there and start working on that, this spring or this summer. You can start getting your information in there. You can start working on your essays over the summer. You can start brainstorming ideas and outlining those things and getting that work done. So, there's a silver lining here to having some time, in that you can start getting a little bit ahead of the curve on the application side. And for those who are, sophomores, use this summer to maybe take some free online practice exams. And this is advice that Anthony and I would give our sophomores anyway, aside from what's going on, is take some free online practice exams. There's plenty of places that do it. We do it at Collegewise. There's plenty of other places that will offer free ones. The district also offers exams lots of times throughout the year. You might also decide to test in the fall if you're advanced enough in math. As you're a freshman, take this time to just relax, practice more self-care than the older kids in high school if you're a freshman. You have a little bit of a breather here. Work on trying new things. Again, same advice we would give to you if this stuff wasn't going on. So trying those new things, try, taking a class online, try looking through the Yale Coursera classes. I know a couple of you asked that in chat. I think that's a great activity. Some colleges might not take those for credit, but you could do that as an activity to take a class that interests you. Don't stress about testing if you're a freshman right now. Use the AP reviews to work on your AP classes if you have them already as a freshman or a sophomore. Use online resources to keep your grades up. And that's the thing, whether or not you know what's happening with pass or fail, we need to make sure that you keep your grades up, because we don't know what's going to happen with that. And you shouldn't just, decide to phone it in case it goes pass or fail, because you won't learn the material, and we don't want to set you back for next year. And the standardized testing, I think we've beat this drum so many times, but this is for all the classes. Just keep up to date on the correspondence from your schools and what's going on with the testing, so that you understand what the differences are for you in each of your age groups. So with that, we can jump on in. I can let Anthony talk about some cool resources for college lists.
Yeah, and so we've been sending you these resources. Actually, I posted this one already. This has information about all the different, schools, all schools, closed campuses, what campuses are affected with their visit programs, deposit deadlines, different things like that. So I already posted it, so you have that available to you. It's a great resource. It's from NACAC, and it'll just kind of talk about the impact on the virus. You also find out information about other schools outside of California, and what things are affecting admissions and all that. So I would go here. You can check that up. Somebody had asked too about outside of California. Yes, schools are coming out every day who are test optional and not. You have to just, it's all available online. You can get it through all the links we've been sending you guys. So definitely check it out. Stay up to date. And the other thing that I wanted to make known as well for you is, I said this before, is you can definitely, especially for my seniors, you can still visit the schools, but virtually. Okay. For my younger students, you know, now we're on spring break. You have a few days. You can do a couple. My juniors do some visits right now. I know you can't physically go there, but you can do a couple of virtual opportunities, whether you do a tour, a classroom visit, and I'm going to send you, or Breanne's going to post on here, some a spreadsheet and a couple of sites where you can do those tours of the college campuses. And they're really cool video tours, whether it's Campus Real, University TV, and then the schools themselves have their own tours as well. So check them out. I know the UCs have it, a lot of the private schools. So really get out there and make a visit if you haven't done so already. You should have the time now. And you know, maybe put in 30 minutes of 40 minutes of time on one day and do a couple school visits. Definitely for my seniors and for my juniors. For my younger students, maybe you don't have to do that now, but again, there's a great opportunity. And even if we weren't in the virus thing and you wanted to apply to schools back east and you couldn't make a trip back east for whatever reason, you can still do these virtual tours online and get a sense of those schools. Okay, so I think it's really important to use some of these resources, especially if you can't get a chance to visit when we're even back to some normalcy. Okay, so um, all right, so that's just some of those. I think we'll also have a virtual tour for the UC campuses link as well. So Breanne's going to put that on right now. And in the meantime, somebody's asking about applications, but I was talking, I don't know, I'm sure if they were asking about applications. To start the application process. Well, you don't need to start the application process now, but depending on where you're applying, there's different application processes. So the UCs have their own application. There's a common app. That's all available. You'll find more about it as you kind of go through this process through Futureology if you're in with the CUSD district. If you're not, that's available. Go to the school you're interested in. They'll tell you how to apply to that school, whether they say, we use the Common App, or I'm UCI. Well, it's the UC application, or the Cal State. So there's a few different types of applications, and there's a process that goes with it. But what I want to tell you about that is, just because they're due, let's say in the fall, doesn't mean you can't start working on pieces of the application this summer. So for my students in our district, we run essay workshops. We run how to fill out your activities profile workshops. We run a bunch of different things that you can start working on now, drafting your essays this summer. So when the application does come available, you've already done all the pieces to it and it's a lot easier. So again, that's just simple research online, going to the school and finding out what application that they are part of, and then checking out what that application looks like. Okay. I don't think I elicited more questions in my session, or my
No, I think we're good. I threw a bunch
section.
of links in there for people. So
Okay, perfect.
want to jump into some other resources at Capo?
Yeah, sure. So again, guys, I'm with the Capo district. I work for the Capo district. Even though a lot of people go, Futurology, how much do I owe you for talking? Nothing, because I work for the district. Here's our website there. It's right on the page. If you want to know what's going on in our world, always check it out. You don't need to email me like, oh, I don't know what's going on. If you go to this website, there are a bunch of tabs. One tab is appointments and events. We list everything we're doing, and we're doing everything virtually now. That will be there for my juniors. If you're a junior on the call now, we have a college list jumpstart coming up. We have an essay workshop in May. We have we have interviewing webinar. We have a mock interviews, like where we will interview you online now. There's things coming up for juniors and seniors. And for my younger students, there's some career workshops. Check it out if you haven't seen any of that. Stay up to date. Check us out on social media. Keep updated on that. And we also have a webinar locker. So this webinar will repost there. And we have a lot of other webinars that we've done that you can find out there, as well as a resource library for a lot of the worksheets and things that we have students that should be working on. So like a lot of people asking about SAT and ACT prep. I put a handout out for a lot of free resources out there. So those are some really good ones. to stay involved with futurology and know what's going on. Then you have your high school. You could check with your high school and some things they're doing. Sometimes we do joint things together. On We also have on our website, our district website, we have a link to the coronavirus and things that we're doing. We do some webinars. We have some social emotional webinars. Our counselors are doing things. Our district are doing things. We just had a webinar that was just recorded with a doctor. So there's lots going on. You just have to search. Now we're doing everything online. Now's the time to start searching online through the district, through Futurology, to kind of make sure your needs are met. Okay, so take a look at those. I know Breanne has some stuff too about resources that Collegewise has. And let me say one thing about Collegewise before Breanne takes over. Yes, they are an outside company. We trust them. We do a lot of partner things with them. We believe in the information. They see a lot of our students and give us feedback about what our students are seeing in college admissions, so we appreciate their support as well. And they do a lot of services outside. They're paid for services. We don't necessarily endorse one particular company, but I can tell you, working with Breanne, she has our kids' best interest at heart. And so that's why she's coming on here with me to give you guys really good information, answer all your questions. And she really knows, she has her pulse on college admissions and what our students are needing at the moment. So turn it over to Breanne.
I think Anthony also likes to just point out my gaming nerdiness every time we do a presentation.
Sure. Yeah, she's definitely the nerd of the bunch.
So yeah, that's true. I have worked with me personally. I mean, Collegewise has been here, like we said, for 20 years, but I have worked with students in South Orange County for about almost 10 years specifically. And I am a resident of Rancho Santa Margarita. So this is my community. This is my neighborhood. These are my schools. So I'm very familiar with stuff. It's very close to my heart to know this stuff and to support students in this way. So I'm always happy to provide good resources. So yeah, check out stuff. We're posting stuff on Collegewise all the time. But let's talk a little bit about summer planning, because that's kind of the wrap up to the year before we get to, I think, our final conclusions and things. But things to think about as you're talking about summer planning. Lots of you might have had summer programs that you were going to do. You were going to go to a college, you were going to go to UCI and, build a computer. You were going to go to Brown University and do a cool camp. A lot of those programs are going virtual. So check with the college. If you haven't heard from them, ask them if they're going to offer a virtual option, because you might still be able to do that program. You just might have to do it online. And that's going to be just as good to a college you're applying to as if you had flown somewhere and done it. Really, it's about doing something you're passionate about, that you're excited about. Whether it's online or not, doesn't really matter. Get creative. We talked about ideas before about things you can do. It doesn't have to be to just help healthcare workers. I have a student who, we're talking about game nerdiness. I have a student who is he does tutoring, but since students aren't using him for tutoring as much now, he actually started a D&D group that people can join and do virtually. So that's Dungeons and Dragons, for those of you who might not know. But you can get creative. You can do some cool stuff. Remember what Anthony said earlier. Consider your character and your community. Colleges care about things you care about. They can tell when you're doing something that you don't care about, because it's obvious in the way you describe it on the applications. So even for those younger kids, make sure the activities you're doing are stuff that you really actually care about and stuff that you'll stick with and enjoy. There's no definition of a good summer. It doesn't need to be a formal program. You can, do a job. If things open up, you can get a job. If they don't open up, maybe you can do things like help Meals on Wheels, deliver meals to seniors. Of course, please remember that if we're still doing a stay-at-home order, that we want the activities you're doing to keep you safe. So please still stay safe, but get creative about things you can do. You can read books. Go on Goodreads and create a Goodreads list and make a goal for yourself to read, 5 new books this summer. That can be an activity. That's a cool thing you could talk about in a college essay. Serve in your community. Find out from a local church or an organization if they're doing, online virtual meets. I know there's some senior centers that are doing virtual visits where they're, letting their volunteers meet with their seniors virtually so that they can still have that interaction they would normally have. Tutor some younger siblings, tutor some younger kids on the block, set up some Zoom meetings to do tutorings. There's all kinds of ideas. So, just be creative and think of those things. Don't feel like you can't do something just because you're sitting at home. So, and with that, let's talk about all the stuff we can do to help, which are lots of things.
There are lots of things. So I mean, we're doing one thing now. We at least for Futureology, some things that we're doing is we're doing online workshops. I mentioned some of those college list jumpstarts, essay workshops. We have drop-ins. So in the month of April, every week on Tuesdays, we're going to have a different grade level where you can drop in and ask a question. So if you're a senior, next Tuesday, we're going to have a drop-in where you can come in and just ask questions. So it's just a Q&A. So again, understand also what you're signing up for. If it's just a virtual drop-in Q&A, you ask your question, we try to answer it, and then that's it. A lot of times some things are presentation based, and it's just like this with some Q&A at the end. So if that might be a better situation for you to maybe get your specific question answered for you. Or for us, there's appointments. Set up an appointment, a one-on-one appointment with one of my counselors where you and I would be talking, or you and one of my counselors, and we would talk about your situation. So if you go to our website at CUSD-Futureology.org, you can set up a one-on-one appointment and get your specific questions. And I know a lot of you had some great questions. If you feel the need, then set up an appointment so you can make sure you get all those questions answered. So we got more webinars coming up, lots of things coming up. And again, as your schools probably have other things available to you. And then Collegewise has a bunch of stuff. So I'll let Breanne talk about what they have that they can share with you.
Yeah, so we have lots of options as well. So we have AP sessions that you can join. We have tutoring that you can do, all this stuff virtual. We obviously have counseling. I am a counselor locally. We have other counselors available. So we offer a range of things that you can do. And I think as we wrap up, we can answer some questions. And then for those of you who were here at the beginning, Courtney, who did the intro, will do a little quick wrap up so you guys know some of the things that are available to you, as well as what we'll be sending out to you after. Here's a little bit of information about that.
Well, first of all, I would love to say on behalf of all of those who attended the webinar and myself, I personally appreciate all the information that both of you, Breanne and Anthony, shared with us this evening. As I mentioned earlier, I am a program advisor at Collegewise. So what that means is I have the opportunity to talk with students, just like all of you, and families every single day, and learn about what kind of support you are needing to be successful, not only in high school, but through this college application journey. And I can tell you, for the past couple weeks since the start of the coronavirus, there has been a lot of confusion swirling around and a lot of concern. And so I know just from those conversations that the information shared tonight has hit upon so many of those pieces. So hopefully you all feel a little bit more in tune with what's going on in the world around us pertaining to college admissions. And I do want to mention, if you still have some questions, or if you wanted to take an opportunity and schedule a call with me, I'd be happy to talk further with you about how we can help you navigate high school and navigate some of these questions a little bit more concisely pertaining to your own situation. So you see my email listed there, Courtney@collegewise.com. And we do also have the coronavirus update portion on our website. So that link is listed in the presentation as well. We are offering families free webinars and Facebook Live Ask Me Anything sessions. In fact, Breanne is presenting a topic tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you wanted to join her again and see her lovely face, we would be happy to have you. As she mentioned, I know that, first of all, there was a lot of concern around SAT and AP tests and how those are being impacted by the virus. So we are able to support students with tutoring. If you are feeling like, wow, this new online platform is really overwhelming for me as a student, I need a little bit more help preparing for the AP exams, we are offering small group AP courses. So feel free to get in touch with me, and I'm happy to share more information with you about schedules and what that might look like. Also, SAT, ACT test prep, we can help with that as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 40 tutors, and we can even provide an evaluation for you about which exam might be the better fit too. Again, there's a lot of stress out there about how SAT and ACT examinations are changing, and how the impact of the virus is being perceived by colleges and universities pertaining to standardized tests. So we can also provide some guidance there too, in addition to what you received tonight. Again, I do want to mention that you will be receiving an email with this recording, as well as the links that Anthony and Breanne shared throughout the webinar. So you will be able to access all of those links, and we'll make sure they're listed there for you. Breanne and Anthony, I know we went over a little bit in time. Would you like to spend a few minutes answering questions, or do you feel like it's better to have students reach out to you individually with their questions?
I mean, I'd like to hit some right now, if we can, and then I know I've already been getting people emailing me some specific questions, which I appreciate, so continue to do that. And again, for some of you, and I know a few of you already emailed privately, when you have like 10 or more, why don't you email me one email with all 10 of them, or we might even set up a private chat to get your answer. I want to make sure your questions are answered. We're not trying to fluff you off or pass you aside. We want to make sure your questions are answered. You just need to know everybody's situations are a little different. And that's why, again, as Breanne says, it depends. You know, a lot of things are going to depend on your situation. So until we have more information, it's hard to give you the right advice. So if it's something more sensitive, we're going to be refraining from giving you something that specific. So before we end and before we take a few more questions, I want to say this again, because I said it a bunch of times tonight, so you hear me, because a lot of questions are still coming in. But if I don't submit my test, then I'm in trouble? No, because if you apply to a test optional school, they're not going to hold it against you. So again, they're going to measure kids in other ways. Context is going to be a little bit more nuanced, and they're going to be looking at your context. You're going to have to create the narrative with these colleges. Okay, I know there's anxiety, and you're feeling it's crisis, and but you're going to have to keep calm. You're going to have to stay educated and updated. So you're going to have to look at these sites and the links that we're telling you about. You can do a lot of the research yourself. Some people are asking, well, how do I find out if a college takes SAT subject tests? There's a question. You go check in with the college, just like you would try to find anything out. Well, does the dentist do this with the cleaning? Well, I don't know. Call the dentist, just like you. So it's the same thing. I want you guys to apply that same thing you would do in your everyday life. So stay educated, be patient. I know some of you are going, well, what's CUSD going to do? You have to be patient. When we have the information and we're ready to make an informed decision, we will let you know. And again, schools, parents, kids, you're going to have to maintain and continue flexibility, okay, in these next few months, okay? I know it's a frustrating situation, but you'll have to adapt. Colleges will adapt. Your high schools will adapt, okay? And just know we have your best interests at heart, okay? So with that said, Breanne, I don't know if there's any questions that jumped out at you in the chats that we've been taking, but I know there's a bunch of test questions, so I'll
Yes.
take those in a clump. I'll do one after another. But if there's things outside of testing that you see in there that you want to pull out and answer, I've been doing a lot of one-on-one answering, so hopefully we're catching a lot more.
Yeah, I think we started doing a little bit better with our one-on-one answering toward the end there, because I don't think we expected you guys would have so many brilliant questions. They were all very good.
Brilliant, yes.
So I think, yeah, so if Anthony wants to cover testing, I'm happy to have him do that. I will just throw something out there again to reiterate with just general admissions that, because there's a lot of questions and angst around students who already have high scores and how GPA is going to be, calculated for UCs and other colleges, and, kind of this angst of, I already had a good GPA, what's going to happen? And the reality is, while we don't know for sure, because things are still changing, that colleges, once again, are going to take everything in context. Students will not be faulted if they are unable to take a test because tests get canceled. They will also not be faulted because they took a test and decided to send that in. So, if you already have a score you love and is really high, that's great. That's not going to be a bad thing or a good thing, for you. You send the test score just like you would normally. So I think for those of you who are worried about things impacting you in a negative way, I just want to try to assuage those fears that, colleges understand that all of this stuff is different for each student, and there's going to be a much more holistic approach in admissions than there would have been in previous years for even schools that don't normally do that as much, because they're going to have to take so much into context. So I'll let Anthony run through and kind of do a punch list on the test, because I think that's the
Sure.
majority of the questions we didn't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
to.
Yeah. So again, just kind of echoing what Breanne just said. We had a question come in here. Well, I've worked so hard and I got this great score and now it's not going to count. No, like nobody's saying it's not. Your hard work these 3-4 years is still going to count. If you took the SAT and you did well, or you did well in school, it's going to count. Okay. If you didn't take the SAT, they're not going to hold it against you. So these things are just going to benefit students. So again, all your hard work will still continue to pay off. Again, the myth really around it though is just because you got a great score, if you got a perfect score on the SAT or ACT, doesn't even guarantee you admission anyway. They still look at the context and the whole student anyway. So just because you have a high score doesn't even guarantee you anything anyway. You got to make sure you're looking at the whole student, the whole candidacy, beyond the academic and the grades and the test scores. There's more than that. So again, just as it would in other years, they're still going to be looking at all those factors as well. But if you did well, that's going to bode well for you. But what else do you have to show them? They're still going to be looking at character. They're going to look at creativity and other things like that. So hard work doesn't just mean in the classroom and on a test. It also means outside the classroom. What else have you done? So understand that the test score is just one component. It's either going to benefit you or it's going to play no role because you couldn't take the test, which is fine. So more of the test questions that came in is about there's, just because you took one doesn't mean you get priority acceptance. There's no priority acceptance because you did or not. Again, it's not going to be held against kids who didn't take the test. Okay, so understand that. But if you do have it, it could, again, they haven't come out. I don't know if you've heard anything, Breanne, about scholarships tied to test scores and things like that. But again,
Yeah.
as always, they're going to weigh it in your favor. They're going to look to give kids opportunities, give them scholarships in the absence of where kids didn't have that opportunity. So again, don't worry about that. If you normally would get a scholarship based on that, they're going to keep considering you and the context will come into play. So colleges, let's see. Nope, got that one. Nope. Let's see. Okay, so this one is, what if your school you're interested in is not test optional and you were hoping for early decision, but you haven't been able to test? Okay, great question. So this is situational. For now, all those schools that are not test optional are assuming that's going to open up again. And if, let's just say, it's closed through the summer, my guess is a lot of things are going to change on the admission front. So you're going to have to stay on top of it. You're going to have to stay updated. For now, they're assuming that things are going to open back up and kids will be able to test. So right now, no decision has been made. So for that school, you can also show demonstrated interest, call them up, check in with them, say, hey, by the way, if it doesn't clear up, what would you be your policy? Would you be flexible on that? And so for now, that school that maybe you're referencing isn't test optional, but down the road, if things don't change and it keeps learning online, if the College Board or the ACT doesn't come out with an online option, then they might change that. So again, things might change over time, but very good question. Another question I'll leave for you, Breanne, but they mentioned the SAT and ACT, but how can a student stand out against other applicants if they never took the SAT or ACT?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of that stuff we've been talking about, right? Like, there's going to be other things on the application that they're going to look at. They're going to see your grades and your GPA. They're going to see your activities, and that includes everything you've been doing since ninth grade. They're also going to see your essays. So all of those things will help you stand out for those who don't look at tests. The other thing to note about schools who will not be using tests, or if you choose to go test optional, whether or not that school is going test optional just for this fall or has always been test optional, like some schools have been for many years. The colleges aren't going to look at that as a missing piece of your application, and which I think is still kind of the way people are viewing this. They're not going to say, oh, well, you have 1 through 5 on the checklist, but you don't have number 6, and this other kid sent us number 6. That's not true. How they look at it is you have 1 through 5, which is all they require. Somebody else sent a number 6. It was optional. They'll use it as part of their application. But for those of you who just sent in 1 through 5, they will not hold it against you that you didn't send in number 6. So all those things we talked about can all help you in your application. Activities, essays, that demonstrated interest if the school is looking for that, where you're reaching out to them and, doing virtual tours and those kinds of things.
Okay. So another good question is kind of strategy. If there's only one test date coming up, should we use it for subject tests or SAT tests? Really good question. That's probably sounds like for underclassmen, for juniors, not seniors. I would just say, do you have a test? Well, again, this is context. Do you have a test under your belt or not yet? So if you don't take the SAT, right, that might not allow you to apply to a bunch more schools than if you didn't take the subject test. So I think, again, this is going to depend, and what I would advise based on your situation. I don't know where you plan on applying. I don't know what you've done or haven't done yet. So I've been driving people to say, first of all, AP tests are great and important right now because they're right here, because they're coming up in May. If you can get a test under your belt, shoot for an SAT or an ACT, because the subject tests, they're not going to have many more test options and dates later on. They might even forgo those, as well as a lot of schools don't require them. I mean, a lot more schools don't. So again, I don't know your situation or what your major is going to be, or if you're applying to, a select top 5 schools. But for the most part, if it was just a general question, I would say take the SAT or ACT over the subject test at this time, because I don't know enough about it. So again, that might be a follow-up. So I think that's all the testing questions that I've saved. I'm going to go back and look. I did a lot of them individually.
Yeah, and I posted the emails too in chat because I wanted to encourage people that, now that some of these questions were from the first 10 minutes of this session and we've covered a lot
Mhm,
of things, so your questions may
mhm.
have changed. And like Anthony said, we might not be able to give you specific advice for your student because there's a lot of context there. But if you have follow-up questions, Anthony works for the district. He's a great resource. Email him, email me too. I'm happy to answer things that you have. And we'll also be sending out a follow-up of a recording with this and some other links and things as well. So don't feel like if you didn't get it here that, we're going to ignore your emails. We're happy to help you with that stuff.
Yeah, and there's a few more that we've had from earlier on, and just, what conversations do we need to be having right now with the colleges our seniors are going to in the fall? Checking in. What are their plans? Are they are they giving you more time? What do they think? What plans, contingency plans do they have in place? Are they going to charge you full price if you're online learning? There's lots of things you can be talking to them about, but I'm hoping and I'm thinking a lot of colleges are already reaching out to the students and telling them what's up and what's happening. But if they haven't, I'm definitely reaching out to them. I'm finding out what that would look like if it was distant learning. What would the cost be associated with that? Would it be the same? What would we have flexibility in the classes we're choosing? What are they doing right now? Could I sit in on a distance learning class right now to check it out? There's so many things you can ask them, in terms of what you can do and the conversations you can have now. But I would give them a call. I would shoot them an email and start that conversation. And then a lot of times too, when you call them up, they're going to go, you know what, we had a few other questions like this. They might even answer some questions you didn't even have because they're getting that question. I think we hit most of them. Again, a lot of you guys are still asking a really specific question. So please shoot us an email with those about your situation. Some of them are some things for your high school to answer as well. So you might even reach out to your high school if it's something to do with school, just because I don't know what your particular high school is choosing to do with that. But so I'm going to stick my email back in there because it probably was not, it was probably early on. And then another thing came up was, yes, Futureology is free. Our appointments with one-on-one with our counselors are free. We work for the school district, just like if you went in to see your advisor at your high school. Okay, so some people were going like, what? I didn't know you can do that. I thought you guys just did webinars, which no, we do a lot more than that. So we meet with over 1,000 kids every year in appointments. We meet with kids through our workshops. So again, we're getting questions about, would I look better if I have a good score, than someone with no score? I wouldn't be looking at that. You got to look at what can you do to stand out yourself. A test score is only one piece of the puzzle. There's so many more things. So I wouldn't say, do I look better than someone with no score? I don't know. I don't know what else you have, and I don't know what the person that doesn't have a score has in their background. What classes did you take? What are you passionate about? What activities have you done? How have you stood out? It's more than a test score, guys. It's the context of everything. Before the virus and after the virus. What else do you have? So someone who has a perfect ACT score of 36, do they look better than someone with a 30 or a 28? Well, their test score looks better. I don't know anything else about you, and I could tell you a lot. A lot of kids that they might have that great test score. Then I read some of their essays, and we spend a lot of time re-editing them, because if they say those, they're not going to get into some of the schools. So your essays might matter. Your recommendations might matter. So again, more than a test score. So oh yeah, people are talking about dinner now. Yes, dinner does await. So I'm gonna
I
wrap that up. And you're right. I haven't had dinner yet. I'm sure Breanne and Courtney haven't had dinner. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Courtney for hosting us. Thank Breanne. Thank everybody from the district. If you're not from Capo District, stay safe, be well, and you have to stay updated. Check it out and get specifics from your schools. Oh, those schools are test optional. Well, is your school? What would they do? Okay, so I don't know if Breanne, you have any parting words, or what game that's hot now online?
Gosh, no. I still just play the same old World of Warcraft and Overwatch, but I'll let Courtney take it away and wrap it up so you guys can get your dinner going and all your plans you have to do in your living room.
Well, I again just want to echo my earlier sentiments. I know that the information you shared tonight has really helped so many students and families and relieved a lot of stress. And I know that there are still more questions that need to be answered for very specific situations. So I do encourage all of the attendees this evening, keep an eye on your email, check out the recording, rewatch it. We've included the emails a couple times for Anthony and Breanne and myself, and we hope to see you again in the near future, hopefully at tomorrow's webinar if you're available, or at one of the future webinars that the Capo District offers. And again, thank you so much to Anthony and Breanne, and I hope everyone has a great night and stays safe and healthy. See you again next time.
Bye, everybody. One more thing. This came out. Somebody made a great comment. I thought if you know kids in college now, ask them how distance learning is going at that particular college. You probably know a lot of kids who go to college. What does that look like? How do they like it? What are they thinking? They're not doing much? That would be a really great thing to ask them. So with that said, thank everybody. Have a good night.